He adopted 3 unwanted dark-skinned girls 27 years ago, but how they repaid him is unbelievable. One chilly Chicago evening, Officer Joe Cooper was doing a quiet round when he received a call from the precinct. An elderly woman had complained that the abandoned flat next door was making weird noises. He happily went there because she asked the police to investigate, but when he opened the door, he saw something that no responsible adult would ever want to see. In front of him were 3 small girls who were hiding from him. The girls appeared to be quite impoverished. Additionally, Joe was deeply hurt by the filthy faces and obvious abandonment of these children. They brought to his mind the daughter he had lost 2 years earlier in an automobile accident. Gaining their trust took some time, but once he did, he quickly drove them back to the precinct in his car. After some hot chocolate and some small talk back at the precinct, it was discovered that they were, in fact, the daughters of a dealer who had decided they no longer wanted them. They had thus simply left the girls to fend for themselves while they were sleeping. Joe made an effort to carry on with his work as usual, but the image of their tiny faces lingered in his mind. He made the decision to do something that no one on his force could possibly comprehend because he believed they deserved better than what life had dealt them. Joe decided to formally adopt the girls, which was such a drastic move that it left people speechless. The girls' names were Mia, Leigh, and Amy. Being the youngest, Amy was overjoyed to be adopted. She cherished the thought of having a devoted father and a bed to herself. Even though Mia, the oldest, was extremely doubtful, she found it hard to comprehend why a grown man would want to take on 3 broken girls in that manner. She was not in the fortunate position of being naive and relying on the hard lessons life had to teach her. Hearing the account of how he had lost his beloved daughters in such a tragic crash, a girl of her age should never have known. She started to comprehend a little bit more. The poor officer hadn't even mustered the courage to clean out his girls' rooms because he was still in mourning over their demises. Naturally, this was ideal since it allowed the girls to have their own rooms. The room, beds, and toys for play were shared by the younger girls. Naturally, Joe was anxious about having them move in with him for nearly 2 years. They were afraid, but he had been grieving alone since his wife had abandoned him after they lost their daughters, and he had been living alone. They soon settled into their new home. People that lived around Joe were naturally inquisitive about his new familial additions. Not only because he had adopted 3 little girls but also because they were African Americans. The fact that a white police officer had adopted 3 little African American girls was hard for some people to digest to them. They felt it was unnatural or strange. But to Joe all he saw were 3 little girls who needed protection and love, something he knew he could do, so he took a chance. As time passed, the girls began to warm up slowly to their new dad. Whenever he wasn't working, he made sure to get them out of the house and do something fun. The girls became more comfortable with their new dad and home. They began to thrive at school and even began to bring friends home with them. Joe was thrilled at the idea that he was able to provide them with a loving home and the somewhat normal childhood. His prayers paid off in the end as his girls went on to be quite successful. Mia went on to study to be a therapist as it was her intention to help children like her. Leigh became an avid journalist reporting on felonies and specializing in forensics whilst little Amy was working towards her PhD in music. Just 27 years later Joe could hardly contain the pride he had for his children. Little did he know what they had in store for him. It was Amy's graduation when she finally being awarded her doctorate in musical therapy and brain thanks to her compelling and unique thesis. She was asked to present the speech. When accepting her award, Joe sat anxiously and proud in the crowd waiting to hear her speech, but then something strange happened. Amy stood up at the podium and then was joined by her 2 older sisters. She then began